I'm Neil Acharya.
And I am Nate Sager.
Welcome to SportsLit. Growing up as a Maple Leaf fan starting around the mid-'80s, I didn't really have an understanding of who contributed to their glory years. Who are the players that made them revered? The reason why I didn't know is twofold. Firstly, I was young, about 6 when I started tuning into Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday nights, so I didn't really have much of a concept of what came before me in any regard, hockey or life. Secondly, as I would find out later as a new decade began, it was Harold Ballard, the cantankerous longtime owner, that had feuded with prominent alumni like Dave Keon, Darryl Sittler, and Ted Kennedy, and essentially alienated a large group of them. So growing up in Kingston prior to the hyper sports media coverage that built up in earnest around the early 90s, I really had no clue who Eddie Shack was. I might have heard his name. I might have had a vague idea of this flamboyant man who was very popular, but I really didn't know who he was. So if you don't know who he is out there listening, I'll tell you. Let's start with on the ice. He won the Stanley Cup 4 times with the Maple Leafs in the 1960s, making him a living link to their last championship in 1967. He played over 1,000 games and recorded over 1,000 penalty minutes from 1958 to 1975, where he played for 6 NHL teams. For 5 of those teams, he had 20-plus goal seasons, which is definitely a notable feat. Nate, we might get into that a little later. First of all, how did Eddie become the entertainer? It seems to have started because he was having a ton of fun mixing it up during his career. He had a rough and tumble style, yet he was lovable with a persona that endeared him to fans. And that going along with having no filter and a keen business sense, and a legend is born. So much so that he had a song bearing his name that topped the Canadian charts in the 60s. How many NHL players are known for doing pirouettes after being named one of the game's 3 stars, and also can be associated with a vicious stick swinging incident with Larry Zeidel, or outskating while outmanned against the terrifying Plager brothers? What I like about players from his generation is that if they had any longevity, you can see the cataclysmic cultural change occurring globally through the change in their appearance. Shaq began his NHL career as a kid from Sudbury with a brush cut, and as the 60s progressed and into the 70s, his hair became longer. And in the me decade, the 70s, his locks were just flowing. By that time, he had a handlebar mustache that we see today. And the me generation, the me decade, the 70s, was a perfect time for the entertainer to retire and blossom into the businessman that he is. Though illiterate, he proved savvy in business, selling soft drinks, Christmas trees, and owning a golf course that he later sold for $15 million. He's now 82, and if you read the book we're about to introduce, it appears as though he never made a bad business deal. I'm not so sure about that, but he's certainly done well for himself. And I found the book very intriguing, the book that I'm going to introduce, because I hadn't read Ross Brewitt's Clear the Track, Eddie Shack biography that came out in the 90s. So there was a lot of information I had no idea about. The book I'm going to introduce, written with Ken Reid right now, is Eddie Shack, Hockey's Most Entertaining Stories. It's a production, truly. It's a part coffee table book and part biography told through anecdotes. And the production it's put out by Frameworth Publishing Inc. It's a collection house, a memorabilia house. So it's really a product more than a story. There's cool asides, it's the big pictures, post-it notes with his wife kind of rolling her eyes and putting her 2 cents into his stories. Ken writing some context. Ken Reid, of course, who will be our guest. He was chosen, or somehow we'll find out how, ended up being the guy to get this book out, to write this book, or really get Eddie's words out as only Eddie can say. And Ken, of course, has 4 books, all hockey-related, under his belt, including bestsellers, The Hockey Card Stories 1 and 2. And he makes it a hat trick with his 3rd visit here on SportsLit. Ken, of course, would add marketability to this book and experience, and he's known nationwide as the main anchor on sports, or one of the main anchors on Sportsnet Central. And, he's graciously agreed to join us again today. And before we talk to him, Nate, fire away.
Yeah, verily, while reading this, the thought really occurred that Eddie Shack was an early adopter. Now, I don't know when the term personal brand entered our lexicon. Like, some people say the 80s was really the decade that kind of created the modern athlete who's, thinking of their Instagram story while they're dropping a triple-double. But, he came up in an era when NHL players still worked regular jobs in the off season, but he took that further by, he was, always had the side hustle going. He was ahead of his time, really, I guess among athletes, maybe even entertainers in general, in realizing that success was going to become about how your personality played on the market. But would that hockey shtick have worked if he hadn't also been a pretty fair NHL player who also had the charisma and ability to make everyone around him feel like they matter, especially in an NHL dressing room where, you've got like healthy egoed, aggro, young men in close quarters, and little jealousies can become big problems. Doesn't sound like he sometimes ruffled management, I'm sure, as a lot of players did in that era, because teams had absolute control or wanted to have absolute control over their players' lives. But he was able to, make his own way. That's kind of the gloss. But when you read through this through the 2019 lens, it really sheds some light on his era. Like back then, you wanted to make it in hockey, you and your family were really on your own. Yeah, you pretty much had to forgo a formal education instead of now where it's like, okay, I'll play in the OHL. If it doesn't work out, I've got this scholarship package and I can go, play in the OUA. Hockey players didn't really have any rights in the workplace. They were a long way away from getting their fair share of the economic rents they produced. In fact, after Eddie's career, he and his spouse, Norma Shack, they had to help lead the fight against the NHL so the players could get an appropriate pension for their contributions to growing the game and making the NHL the top spectator sport in Canada and a Tier 1 league in North America. So I like having those stories in mind about, guys who came through the school of hard knocks, old HNU, Hard Knocks University. Especially at a time right now when, working people are kind of under threat to keep the underpinnings that, are holding our society together. But I digress. Eddie Shack has, a lot of stories, warmly told with the help, as you mentioned, our first inductee into the Three Timers Club. Take that, Dan Robson.
He's our Don Rickles.
Yeah. He's here no matter what. No. Ken Reid, the pride of Pictou County. So he and Eddie definitely have our gratitude.
Absolutely. So coming up, Ken Reid to talk about Eddie Shack, hockey's most entertaining stories. Ken, thanks for joining myself and Nate.
Pleasure.
It's your third time on the show.
Thank you
so much
You're
for
welcome.
coming.
Thank you for continually having me.
I'm going to go hard hitting right off the top.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to hammer a puck in deep and get you to chase after it.
Yes.
How did you come to partner with Frameworth Publishing Inc. to do this book?
Well, I know Brian Aaronworth. He runs Frameworth, and I knew him for a few years now. And he just called me out of the blue, I want to say late January, early February, and said, hey, I know you do some writing. Would you like to write a book with Eddie Shack? I said, well, yeah, it's Eddie Shack. Of course I would. But I'm working on something else right now. How about we get together when I'm done with that, and we can plan it out for a couple of years from now or whenever you want it done. He said, no. I want it done by fall 2019. I said, well,
and this was when?
This is February 2019. I said,
wow.
I don't think that's not how it works, Brian. He's like, well, I'm not a traditional publisher. This is my first foray into it, so I'd like to do it this way. So I said, okay, let me straighten out this book I'm working on right now, and I'll call you back in April. We'll get together in April. So when the playoffs started, during the days, I basically would go and meet with Eddie, and at night I would do my gig on Sportsnet Central. So I was burning it at both ends, and you sit down with Eddie Shack and you immediately like the guy because he's hilarious. It's like sitting down with like AC/DC. They just keep playing hits and you just love it. So you're laughing the whole time.
Right.
So we did the book. So Brian again said we want to do this really quickly. So my initial thought was I'll have the traditional kind of 60 to 80,000 word hockey book. But Eddie's stories are short and to the point, and he loves pictures because he's illiterate.
Right.
So pictures were very important to Eddie, so we settled on this coffee table book. Brian at Frameworth had done some books before for U2 and for Madonna for their VIP access tours and stuff like that. So he had a designer, Richard McCorkle, who's frickin' awesome. So I handed in the initial manuscript around June 15th, which is insane. And by July 25th, we had her hammered out, and the designing began, and we got copies around October 14th.
It really is a production. And
Yeah,
so
it is.
I guess, firstly, to people out there that don't know who Frameworth is, just tell us who Frameworth is.
So Frameworth is a sports company that's called Frameworth Sports Marketing. And basically, if you have a man cave, chances are you might have a framed item from Frameworth. They're the exclusive autograph distributor of, Sidney Crosby, Jonathan Taves. They have a lot of players. They do signings at the store, framed jerseys, things like that. They got some really impressive stuff. And Brian's a businessman, and for a businessman to take hold of your book is awesome because he runs it like a business. So we did this quickly. We did it against the grain, not like how I've done any of my other books, and not like how I know a lot of books are done. And it was very efficient. It was very quick, and I really, really like the end product because it's the kind of book you can read cover to cover, or you can set it down and go from one page to the next, and it's got everything. There's, I think, around 250 photos, and probably about 150 of them are never before seen because they came from Eddie and his wife Norma's personal collection. So it's very nice that way. And like I said, the pictures were so important to Eddie.
Yeah, and what was the process like of curating which photos from Ed and Norma Shack's collection were going to be used?
That was the easy part for me. Was I didn't really have to do it. I just did the writing. So Richard collected all the photos, and also Brian at Frameworth Sports has a license to thousands and thousands of NHL photos because he runs Frameworth. Combine that with Eddie. So Richard selected the photos, who's the designer, and Norma and Eddie helped. I, of course, had a look at it right before it went to print. Said, can you get a photo of this here? Can you get a photo of this here, or remove this photo, or this would go great here? So I played a small part in it, but this was all most of the work of Richard, and it's literally a piece of art. Like, it's not just a book. It's kind of like it's the most artsy thing I've ever been involved with. I'll put it that way.
Now, what sense did you get of Eddie's desire to publish a second book? Because he did put out an autobiography with Ross Brewitt in the mid-1990s. I might remember getting it for Christmas.
Yeah, well, Eddie was interviewed for that book. I wouldn't call it an autobiography, though, because it wasn't by Eddie Shack. But like, he was extensively interviewed for it. Norma was extensively interviewed for it. But yeah, Eddie wanted to do this because, like Eddie says, like, that was 20 years ago, and these are more like just kind of the funny, hard-hitting, punchy stories. It wasn't the chronological story of Eddie Shack. And Clear the Track was a great book. This is a little different. This is more what Eddie wanted, I think. I'm not positive about that, but he loves the pictures, and he's really enjoyed being back in the spotlight because Eddie likes the spotlight. Eddie's like me. He likes to talk. He's a pretty easy guy to get along with, so he's really enjoyed this process. I know they went down to Halifax. They sold about 150 books at a Mooseheads game one night. He loved that. He likes getting around, telling stories, having a few cocktails, as he likes to say.
When I looked at this book initially, I thought of Daryl Sittler's book that came out, Captain.
Yep.
And that was with Mike Leonetti, who I believe passed, did he not? Regardless. That came out in 2016, and it's like this. It's a hybrid style of stories, and then it's like a collector's item.
Sure.
So do you see kind of a trend going towards what Frameworth and you are doing here? For players like Eddie and Daryl Sittler that played in that era where playing didn't mean you're set for life, or something like this, you can make some money off a collector's item. Really, that's your biography.
I think we would like to do more of these. Of course, it's a business, so it depends what the final number comes in at. But I think this is very conducive to. It is kind of a collector's item, and Eddie signs a lot of them in the front, and his autograph looks great. And it's a different way. It is similar to the Sittler book. And what I liked about this book and the storytelling process, it's Eddie's version of the truth, and then combined with Norma's version of the truth and my documented version of the truth. So one of the things I love about this book is Eddie always talks about the third man in rule and how much he loved that rule because then he could pick on somebody else on the Montreal Canadiens and laugh at John Ferguson. But the third man in rule didn't come in until after John Ferguson had completed playing. But it's Eddie's story. But yeah, I think this is a concept that we liked, the three of us together, Brian, Eddie, and myself, and Richard, so the four of us. And I would love to do more of these going forward with preferably some old timers and guys who've been out of the game for a while, because the old photos are just amazing. Like just the
Even the cover.
yeah, even the cover. I mean, you don't get pictures like that. It almost looks like the photographers on the ice.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned like moving like 150 copies at a game in Halifax of a book about a man whose last NHL game was 44 years ago.
Yeah.
What is the why the enduring appeal of Eddie Shack as a hockey persona?
It was almost like Eddie was the everyman who made the NHL. Now, that wasn't the case at the start, and I didn't really know this, but Eddie was a big-time prospect coming out of the OHA back in the day. But then he kind of fell into this routine of kind of making the most out of what he didn't have and making the most out of what he did had. I mean, he's illiterate. He could have made every excuse in the book. But he likes to have fun. He's loud. So over time, he developed this persona. And, of course, he developed it on the ice where he was the entertainer, right? By the time it's the mid-'60s, he's the entertainer. So people watch that until for the next 10 years as he travels around the NHL. And then when he's done with the NHL, he becomes the pop shop guy. So he makes a connection with one generation as the entertainer. He makes another generation connection with the generation that includes me as the pop shop guy. And then he'd pop up in ads for Journey's End Motel, popping out of a bed in 1990 and things like that. And so then he became this person and persona to a certain generation. And I think this book is exposing him to maybe a 20, 30-year gap to a whole other generation. So the reason we sell 150 books at a Mooseheads game, or he sells 100 at a Leafs game, he's done a couple Leafs games where he sold 100, 120 just sitting there. And when you talk to Eddie, it's not quick, right? He takes his time with everybody. But he made a connection with people as more than just a hockey player, more than just goals, assists, and his final stat line. I think he's got a bit of the everyman in him. He worked since the time he was 13. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
At Inco.
At Inco, exactly.
And he used to fight people when he was trying to get his time card
yeah,
punched,
he'd just punch guys out of the way and go punch them in himself.
He needed to punch out. He had somewhere to be.
He literally punched his way to the top of the punchline card. But I think Eddie's relatable, and Eddie makes people smile, and I think that's why people still line up 44 years after his last hockey game to get a glimpse of him. Yeah, so when Eddie retired, I was 1. So, and now I write a book with him. That's wacky.
Well, it's interesting. I was talking in the intro with Nate about this, about how as a Leaf fan growing up in the mid-'80s, I'm just a few years younger than you, Ken. Mm-hmm. Because of Harold Ballard, we didn't really have, and there was no hypermedia coverage, no TSN or whatever. I didn't know.
Or Sportsnet.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know who Eddie Shack really was. I'd heard about him. Some old timers you might hear about him. My dad might have said something about it. I didn't know who he was.
But you knew the name.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think part of that might have been, it was a combination, as I said, between the lack of hypermedia coverage and Harold Ballard kind of shunted a lot of alumni.
There wasn't a lot of guys to latch onto, right? And you're right. Like Keon was away for
Keon
an
was
exile.
gone, Ted Kennedy,
Sittler. Like Eddie actually liked Harold Ballard.
Yes.
When I asked him in the book, what do you think of Harold? I love the guy. I'm like, he's the only guy I know that will say that.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. So Eddie was always around the Gardens. And the other thing he did too, and I don't know if you guys ever saw it, was he toured with the Montreal Old Pros when he was done playing. So throughout the 80s, he went to every nook and cranny in Canada. I remember him coming to the Hector Arena in Pictou, Nova Scotia, playing against my dad's team in 1985, and I got a puck signed by him. So
that's in the book, is it
It's
not?
in the book, yeah. So he made all these connections with people coast to coast. So again, he's relatable. People know him, and people may not know him, but they know the name. So this book is kind of showing people like yourself, Neil, from your generation, maybe 40 and under, who know the name but don't know the man. So now they're getting to know the man, and they're getting to see all these crazy stories. And I think at the end of the day, it's also kind of inspiring that a guy that was told he couldn't actually went and did it.
Before my next question, we like to give gifts out here. So I'm going to give you a gift, and I'm going to get you to explain what is in your hand, and then I'll get into my question. So
Microphone currently. I think I got a feeling I might know what this gift is. Yep, nicely done. This is a 6-pack of Pop Shop. Well done, buddy.
So how
That
does
is
that relate
fantastic.
to
Way to go, Neil.
I wish I could have got a Pop Shop case, but unfortunately I had to steal one of my beer cases.
Yeah,
But
that's okay.
the guy on the case of Moretti beer kind of looks like Eddie.
He
He's got a
does
fedora
look like
and a
Eddie
mustache.
Shack. He's got a fedora and a mustache. That's great.
Well played, Nate.
Well played.
So how does this Pop Shop relate to Eddie Shack?
Well, Pop Shop relates to Eddie Shack because in the mid-'70s, Eddie signed up with Pop Shop, which was you make your own pop or you can buy it in the bottles like you see. I used to buy it. We used to go down to this old blue store across from the Dairy Bar in Pictou and buy our Pop Shop. And Eddie became a spokesperson for Pop Shop, I'd say in the mid-'70s. He made they started paying him $60,000 a year to do it, which is far more than he made as a player. I think the most he made as a player was $50,000. But as Eddie would say, it comes in all sorts of flavors, cherry, orange, and lime. I like the lime, and I also like the cream soda. What's this one? Cotton candy. That is awesome.
I got all 6 flavors from the Rexall.
Oh my God, root beer. I love the root beer. I love the cream soda. Was a good one back in the day. Bubble gum. That's amazing. So Eddie was the Pop Shop guy for Canada. He had his own Pop Shop suit, a red blazer, white shoes, white pants. And he was the English Canada guy, and the pocket rocket Henri Richard was the Quebec guy. And Eddie is associated with Pop Shop to this day. That now comes in, they put hard liquor in it too, and it's sold in the liquor stores.
That's right.
That's what I was thinking. You might have got me. And like Eddie says, now you can get the kids hammered off it. But I'm joking.
Wow.
So, no, I'm not joking that he says that. Just don't get the kids hammered.
Remember,
off that.
this like your book is can be an R-rated podcast.
No, the books we there's some F-bombs in there because
a few.
I wanted the book to be like us sitting having a Pop Shop or something a little hard, maybe more hard, sitting across from Eddie, and that's how it reads. And we did remove quite a few F-bombs as well.
Okay, I'm going to now give you.
There's more?
There's another gift.
God, this is like winning the lottery.
Christmas and Festivus.
That's right.
That's right.
Now
What's
this
this?
might take you a second to open up, but I think
It's wrapped.
it's wrapped.
Sent to you. Oh God, you did not.
So I don't know.
Oh my God, Neil. I think I know what it is. You got me that? Oh wow, buddy. That is amazing.
So what is in your hand, Mr. Ken Reid?
Oh my God. This is, wow. That's it. You seriously got me this?
We got you this.
Thanks, boys.
Yeah.
This is the 45 of Here Comes Shaq. Where in the name of Moses did you find this? Better be eBay, eh?
Yes, I found it from a dealer online, and this is the best part of the story.
Wow.
I phoned him as soon as I ordered it, and I said, listen, can you get this to me as soon as possible?
Yeah.
Because I want this in either Eddie, if he showed up, or Ken's hand.
Wow.
And you know what he said to me?
What?
Eddie Shack, you're going to give it to him? I bought a Christmas tree off
Yeah.
of Eddie Shack. That's what the guy told me from, I think it's Molten.
Yeah.
It's on the box here. Whichever, I'll say it.
Milton?
There,
Everyone's bought a
pass
Christmas
me
tree
the-
off Eddie Shack.
Yeah, pass that. It's Molten Core.
That's
The guys
amazing.
from Molten Core, one of the guys bought a Christmas tree
Thanks,
off Eddie
Neil.
Shack.
Thanks, Neil.
No problem.
Well, that's the thing about this book is everybody has an Eddie Shack story. And we actually, since we discovered that, we actually have fan letters in the book of people writing in about their Eddie Shack stories. And some of them are bloody hilarious, I got to tell you. So, wow, guys, thanks. That's very kind. I'm going to get that signed by Eddie.
All right. Well,
That's great.
So this is the question this leads into. And I don't mean to take the...
Look at the gifts I get for coming down here.
I don't... we have to bribe him to come on. He's on
No,
all
you
the
don't
big
have to bribe me to come down.
So we gotta... So
Wow.
my question, and I'll shorten it up, really, and it's... I mean, we lighten the mood here, but it's kind of a serious question. That is, a few years ago when I was reading about PK Subban, around the time he was being traded from Montreal, I think there was a story in ESPN that came out, and they talked about the marketability of hockey players and how some players, they said they didn't even want to get an endorsement because they thought it would, either their teammates would look down on them or take away from the team. And what I thought about when I read that, and really the overarching theme was, well, hockey's always been that way. But if you look at Eddie Shack, it hasn't always been that way. He played in what people call the golden era, and he was a salesman and a showman. So how much of this is Eddie being an outlier? Or, and how much flack did Eddie have to take because of the way he was? Or Is it a new thing that we are saying that hockey is this conservative thing?
No, Eddie took flack. He was like, the boys are kind of like, oh, that's Eddie. You know, he got a lot of that.
Right.
But Eddie did the best thing about Eddie, doesn't care. He's
Right.
himself. His father used to say to him, don't behave yourself, be yourself. And that's Eddie. And Eddie, again, this is a guy who had to hustle, couldn't read or write.
Right.
So he's done a school in grade 4. He becomes a butcher. So then he's a hockey player. Well, guess what? You can only make so much as a hockey player in the 60s. So he sells cars on the side. So he was selling cars, flipping cars all throughout his NHL career. He gets traded to Boston. The first thing his wife Norma says to him, don't buy a house. Within 4 hours, I bought a house, Norma. And he's flips real estate. So people can laugh or all they want, but the man made money, and he used what he had to make his coin. And yeah, he was an outlier then. The closest thing the game has to Eddie Shack now would be a PK Subban, a Paul Bissonnette, who retired.
Right.
Is like Eddie.
Yes.
And I actually had that conversation with Biz, how much they remind me of each other. Of course, I said Eddie scored a hell of a lot more goals. But I think we're going to see more and more of this from the NHL because I would call it the revolution that's going on with the coaches now. In the NBA, the players have control, right? Like LeBron, he tells his coach what he's going to do.
Right.
In the NHL, the coaches have always had control. And Cathal Kelly made this great point in the Globe and Mail. Now maybe it's starting to turn where the players are realizing, well, I'm more valuable to the game than my coach. So maybe it'll turn. It's not going to turn instantly. But yeah, Eddie was an outlier. But then along comes a guy like Tim Hortons, who starts a donut shop up.
Derek Sanderson
had stuff. Bobby Hall would endorse stuff. Lots of guys endorse things, but I think it's the way Eddie loudly endorsed things that made him different, right? You look at a lot of old hockey ads, and it's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I use whatever razors. Eddie comes jumping out of hotel room beds. He wears a red suit.
Right.
Never ashamed to do anything, and never ashamed to make a buck, and I admire Eddie for that.
His dad was somewhat of a salesman too, right? Did they not sell
He was
beer?
a bootlegger.
Yeah, he was a bootlegger.
Yeah.
He sold beer in the house. So maybe that's where he got it. And he was the son of, what were they, Ukrainian immigrants?
And yeah, Eddie's dad was a bootlegger in the house. So Eddie run down to the basement, grab the beer for his dad. And his father was illiterate as well.
Okay.
So I think he learned a lot from his father.
Do for
sure.
self.
Yeah.
How did Eddie's mouth prevent him, perhaps, from winning a 5th and 6th Stanley Cup in dealing with the owner? I think it was Jeremy Jacobs. The stories in the book.
Yeah. So Eddie says what he wants to say, and Eddie is unfiltered. So it's some party at the Boston Bruins are having, and the owner shows up. And Eddie looks at him and says, that's one of the dumbest effing hats I've ever seen in my life. And this old money owner kind of shakes his head and goes to Milt Schmidt, who's the GM, get that guy out of here. So Milt Schmidt wanted to keep him, and Eddie gets traded to L.A. right away. And there's 2 versions of the story in the book, one from Norma, one from Eddie. Again, because Eddie's truth is different from Norma's truth, so who knows? The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. But Eddie's mouth got him absolutely traded out of Boston because he really enjoyed playing with Bobby Orr, loved playing with Phil Esposito, had success as a Bruin. Remember, Eddie is one of only 3 players in league history to score 20 or more goals for 5 teams. And he shipped out of Boston, pretty much exiled, I guess, to Los Angeles because they were not a powerhouse back then. So, yeah. It definitely prevented him from winning those cups in 70 and 72 with the Bruins.
Yeah, that would, I guess, was 1969-ish. By the way, I pulled up Eddie Shack, his last year of junior hockey.
Yeah.
56-57.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With the Guelph Biltmores. They were sponsored by the hat company.
That's a way to get his hat at.
Yeah. He and his teammate Bill Sweeney were 1-2 in the league in scoring with 106 and 104 points. Third leading scorer. You got to go all the way down to 88 points. Some guy named Frank Mahovlich.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Isn't that? So that's how built up Eddie was as a prospect. And he goes to the Rangers and he hates his coach because the coach tried to make him all. Tell me if this doesn't sound familiar to you guys. You need to work on your defense. The coach has been doing that since the 5th. They've probably been doing that since the 1920s. Take a good young scorer and ruin him. So by the time when Eddie got traded to Toronto in, I want to say 62, he was regarded by the New York media as a bust. So he had to figure something out. And in Toronto, he definitely figured something out because 3-4 years later, this record comes out, and he's a cult hero by that time.
I wonder if he ever scored a hat trick against the coach who said he couldn't play.
Oh, geez.
Thinking of Anthony Duclair here.
Yeah, well, yeah, no kidding. I don't know if he did score a hat trick against the Rangers, but yeah, I know he didn't like Phil Watson. Put it that way.
Now, when we had the sessions with Eddie, what was the interaction like with Norma Shack?
Yeah.
Correct. You were saying she was, filling in like, Eddie, come on.
It was hilarious. So first few sessions, it's just with Eddie. We're waiting at Frameworth, and then we meet at Eddie's house, and Eddie keeps saying, you have to meet Norma, you have to meet Norma, you have to meet my wife, Norma. So I go over to their house, and it is an immaculately beautiful house.
In Toronto?
Toronto.
Area.
It's spotless. The garage is Eddie's domain, so he's got his hockey pictures up there, his golf pictures up there. The house is Norma's domain. So up we go, and we're sitting in the kitchen, and Norma comes out, and she starts telling me stories, and Eddie would chime in. So we probably talk for 2 or 3 hours. And so then I ask Eddie a few more stories, and he starts going. And then Norma would say, no, Eddie, that's not how that happened. So I wanted to know how they met. So Eddie comes up with this big story of, she couldn't resist me. No. So that was awesome to have the two of them in the room going back and forth. So we met with Norma a few more times. One of Eddie's good friends would come by, and he'd give his version of what happened. So it was like, how awesome is it for Eddie and Norma Shack to invite me into their house, right? I'm just chilling out with them. So it was really cool.
Is that how, in terms of the production, we talk about this book being a production, is that how the Post-it note concept came up? Like, how did that come up? So, because you can sense when you're reading the stories, it's Norma kind of going, no, Eddie, and like laughingly rolling her eyes through the Post-it note.
So in one of Don Cherry's books, they had notes from the author that would kind of set the stage.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to do. So instead of me writing the book just as Eddie Shack, I wanted to set the stage and then have Eddie chimed in. So I made these things. I think they're called Ken Says or Ken Notes.
Yes.
And Norma has them as well.
Yeah,
so I put them in for Norma.
On a Post-it
so
note.
when I wrote the book on a Word document, it would just say in bold lettering Ken's note.
Right.
And then it would have it, and then Eddie. So Richard McCorkle, the designer,
and
comes up with this idea to actually put it on a sticky note in the background. I'm like, this looks freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So again, all I did was submit a Word document, and then this magic comes out of that. So full credit to Richard. The different color schemes. There's Norma Says right there. It looks like it's on a Post-it note, which I just love.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's how that came about.
And sorry to cut you off. There's some heavy hitters in here that have stories about him, like Wayne Gretzky and Bobby Orr as well. I mean, I'm sure those guys get asked to do a lot of things all the time. How did you manage to get them to contribute?
That is all Brian Aaronworth, the publisher. Brian knows Wayne. Brian was Wayne's autograph guy for years. They've known each other for 25, 30 years. So so Eddie kept saying, why don't you talk to this guy for the book and talk to this guy for the book?
Right.
So I said, okay, I got a few numbers. And Brian says, well, we should get Gretzky because Wayne is like a lot of great players don't know everything about the game.
Right.
Wayne knows everything about the game.
Yeah, there was a great story you had, and I forget now what it was, but I remember reading it and going, wow, there's a lot of real detail here.
So it's funny, the new ad that's out for Tim Hortons, when he talks about meeting Tim Horton, Eddie Shack was actually there too, because he talks about that in the book.
Yes.
And he talks about seeing Eddie play senior hockey. So so instead of, again, a different way to do it, I just take sections of the book and in Wayne's words, he does it. Bobby Hull's words, he does it. George Armstrong, who doesn't do interviews with anybody, he does it. That goes to Eddie. So these guys aren't calling me because I'm me. They're calling me because I'm writing the book with Eddie and Brian.
Right.
But I'll never forget when Wayne called. I'm driving to work. I'm on Eastern Avenue, and the phone rings. It's Wayne. It's Wayne Gretzky, and pull over, and we talk for like. This is typical Wayne Gretzky. I needed 5 minutes. We talked for 50. Like he's just awesome, and he's just a hockey man. Like he just knows the game so well, and it's just that. Like I mean, what a thrill to write a book, not only with Eddie Shack, but to talk to Wayne Gretzky for it. Bobby Hull, Jack Valaquette, George Armstrong, Bernie Perron. It's just amazing.
George Armstrong, particularly for those listening, he doesn't do any interviews at all.
No.
So I remember noticing that, and I was going to ask you. I'm glad you brought it up.
And as Eddie will say, and he doesn't sign autographs either, but he does for me.
So there's people that, I mean, people say this stuff all the time. Some people say, oh, that guy was born too late.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, this guy is ahead of their time. But if you look and see how Eddie progressed through time, starting with the military-style brush cut and retiring, going through the 60s and mirroring, like a lot of people that played as long as he did during that time from the 50s to 70s, he's mirroring the change that's going on in the world.
Yeah, he is.
So I'm thinking Eddie he wasn't born too late. He wasn't ahead of his time. He's perfect for his time.
That's well said, Neil. He was absolutely perfect for his time, and he mirrors the game, right? Because in the 60s, even when the Leafs win in 67, it's the brush cut era. And then the 70s come, and I give credit to the WHA for kind of funk-defying the world of hockey. They come out with the bright-colored uniforms and different looks, and hey, if your hair is long and scraggly, so be it. And that's right. Hockey went right along with him. So Eddie goes from brush cut on the front to the giant mustache and long hair that we know now. He came along at the perfect time. And when you think about it, his personality developed along with the game, because he was always a funny guy, but as Norma says when she met him, he was rather quiet.
Right.
But the volume gets turned up, just like the volume got turned up from the 60s to 70s in terms of style, fashion,
right.
Even music. We go from, folksy stuff to heavy, hard stuff.
Right. And it's also the 70s, as we talked about off the top. 70s was known as the me decade, so perfect time.
That would explain why it's my favorite decade.
But I think I'll let Nate take this one here.
Yeah, now something Eddie's generation of players had to do was they had to fight to get their proper pension benefits.
Yeah.
For people who don't know that era, what was he and Norma Shack's role in leading that fight, I guess, in the early 90s?
Early 90s. So, again, when people think of Eddie Shack, they just think of the entertainer, guy doing twirls after he gets the first star, a guy yelling on TV, a guy hawking pop shop. But what they don't know is that in the early 90s, 7 players rallied to try to get their pension money from the NHL. They realized they weren't getting what they were supposed to be getting. That's putting it in layman's terms. So Eddie and Norma were some of the originals. They were part of that group, part of the 7, along with Carl Brewer was a big name in it at that time. That got together, got a lawyer, started doing some studying, realized they weren't getting the money they were properly owed. Eddie had a golf course in town. It was out by Canada's Wonderland in Toronto. So they started holding charity events there. And if they would have lost this lawsuit, they were putting their own money up for the lawyers. So long story short, within about 2 years, they come up and they get millions of dollars from the NHL. And it's split all the way down from various players, from Gordie Howe right down to a guy like Jack Valaket, who talked about it in the book. And guys got what they were owed. And Eddie played a huge role in that. Norma played a massive role in that. And again, that's something that you'd never think of when you think of Eddie Shack. There's players that, literally could buy a house because they got that money, or put a down payment on a house, or, could get out of debt because they got that money that they were owed, that they didn't get until those 7 former players and someone like Norma got together and did a little studying on it and figured out what was owed.
I could be extrapolating a little bit, but there's a part of the book where he talks about, you write about through probably an interview that he gave you about he's in the alumni box and he gets in trouble. So what I started thinking about was, being on press row at Leaf games. I don't remember, and I could be wrong, but I don't remember Eddie being the guy that hands the jersey to the fan. Like, what is his relationship with Leafs alumni now? Is he in there, or is he?
No, he's older, right? So the guys who play the games are in their 50s and 60s. Eddie's 82.
Right.
But he'll go to a game every once in a while. And he's got his alumni jacket. He wears that proudly. He did a couple signings down at the Scotiabank Arena this year.
Okay.
You'll see him in the alumni box, but he was kicked out of the alumni box once, but it involved Rodney's Oyster House, oysters, and as Eddie would say, a few cocktails. But again, you got to read the book to get that one, because it's a pretty good story. And Eddie, of course, uses his own very to the point language to tell the person in the box that has a problem with him what he thinks of them.
Speaking in terms of to the point language, the press tour, which you've done already with some pretty big outlets, I was wondering how the podcast world has allowed Eddie to be Eddie, in the sense of you can it's no longer you're just stuck doing a print story and breakfast television. You can go on Spit and Chicklets and drop all the F-bombs you want. Has that allowed Eddie's voice to come out
it's funny.
in a new way?
We told him we told Eddie the rules, like when you do TV, he knows that. He's a pro. He's an absolute pro. And when you do podcasts, we said you can be a little more liberal with your language. Right. When Eddie's in front of a microphone in a radio station, a TV station, or a podcast, keeps her pretty clean. However, you get him in front of a live room, that's when it really starts. So we said, when you go on Spit and Chicklets, Eddie, if you want to let loose, let loose. And he let loose, but not verbally.
Right.
But we did another event where we're just in a room with some people that are paid to be there or attend to be there, and others that are just kind of hangers on. And Eddie's letting her fly, and you can see a few people go, "Whoa, what did I just hear there?" So yeah, if you put him in front of a recording device, he's pretty good. But in front of a live audience, Eddie will let her rip.
Now, in terms of being a sentimental guy, I imagine. Well, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but what was he like when he sort of was talking about? I think he said Johnny Bower was his best teammate, and he talked a lot about how Red Kelly never got a proper appreciation. I bring this up because they're teammates, Leafs from that era, who've both left this mortal coil recently.
He talks like of Johnny Bower and Red Kelly like they're almost religious figures. And Red passed during this, and that was tough. That was a tough day. I was with Eddie on that day. That was a tough day. Jack Valaquette makes another great point. He's like, Eddie is this crass, to-the-point guy, but his best friends were Johnny Bower and Red Kelly.
Yeah.
Two guys who never swore, never missed church, never said a bad word. So I think Eddie was drawn to them for this image of the perfect gentleman. And maybe they were drawn to Eddie because, oh my God, look what he gets away with. So, but yeah, he makes a point in the book, and he still makes it. When people ask him who's the best player ever, Eddie says Red Kelly. Doesn't say Bobby Orr, who he played with. Doesn't say Wayne. He says Red Kelly, and he makes a great point. He goes, Red won 4 cups with the Wings, traded to the Leafs. The Wings didn't win another cup till the 90s, and then the Leafs win 4 with Red. Red could play it any way, right?
Right.
Defense forward. And Red was, when Eddie was with the Leafs, Red was also a sitting MP. Think how crazy that is. So he holds Red and Johnny in the highest possible regard.
So a couple of last questions here. Nate might have a few too. I have a couple I've just thought of right now. So first of all, legacy. Yeah. Eddie talks about wanting to be in the Hall or at least having the credentials to be in the Hall of Fame. Do you think it would ever be a possibility, or is it?
I don't think not at this point. No.
Right.
If Eddie was going to get in, it would probably be more as a builder.
Right.
Player, his stats are great, but they're not eye popping.
Yeah.
But Eddie says, they're just scared of what I'd say if I got up there, right? And he always says in the book, if I could read and write.
Yes.
Then I'd know what to say, and I wouldn't go off the course. But since I can't read and write, I get up there, and then I get going, and I start swearing. So they're scared of me. But yeah, he gives his thoughts on the Hall of Fame in the book. He makes a good argument. I mean, he's got an argument for being in there. 4 cups, all with the Leafs. Lots of goals, 20, But it's another thing that Eddie maybe has fun with, I'd say.
Right. And what is Eddie's day-to-day now? What's he up to?
For now, promoting the book.
Of
and
course.
He's loving it. He's loving it. We're having a blast, man. Like, it's so much fun hanging out with him.
Yeah.
Like, you're literally splitting at your sides. You're laughing so hard. But mostly, he's I guess retired. He hangs out at Frameworth a lot.
Yes.
And that's why Brian called me initially. He says Eddie's always here telling his stories. He hangs out at his garage, the Florida garage.
Okay. Yes, and he goes to a deli, right?
He goes to his deli, pincers, and he's got his routines in his neighborhood that he does.
Right.
Still golfs in the summer, hits as straight as an arrow. But the book has really rejuvenated him, and it's given him a
new audience.
A new audience, yeah, and it's given a new audience appreciation of what this player was like, because we don't see guys like this anymore. As much as we'd like to, we don't see Eddie Shacks anymore.
Speaking of golf, I did find it really cool he mentioned Mo Norman in the book.
Yes.
Mo Norman, for people that don't know, I think Lauren Rubenstein wrote a book about Mo Norman, and he is a truly fascinating character.
Yeah.
Eddie describes him in a very basic way, but interesting way in the book.
So Mo Norman's regarded as the greatest ball striker to ever
Right.
live, Canadian golfer. He just couldn't putt. And a lot of people have a theory on Mo that he didn't want to win because he didn't want to be under the spotlight
Right.
at the end and having to do interviews because
Right.
Mo was a different cat. So we're just sitting there one day talking about his golf course, and he's like, yeah, and Mo would come by, and I go, Mo Norman? You golf with Mo Norman? Because you know me, Neil, I'm a golf geek.
Okay.
And I couldn't believe it. So I just got Mo Norman stories in the book. Eddie almost killed a guy when he was playing with Lee Trevino. He hit him in the head with a drive.
That's right.
So Eddie's got a story about everybody, and everybody's got a story about Eddie. So that's what makes it so relatable.
Okay, well, I'm going to close out by asking, and Nate might have a question, but I'm going to say or ask you. Now it all makes sense now, Ken. Last year when you came on, we were talking about your next book, and you alluded to, I think it was one goal only, and then you alluded to a mystery project that had come up, and I think put that on ice.
This would be the mystery project.
This is the mystery project.
So I was actually asked about this before Christmas last year.
Okay,
then.
yeah.
I had my dates mixed up.
Right, yeah.
Wow. So the mystery project is, we're going to call it One to Remember, and it's out fall 2020.
Okay.
And it is the One Goal Only book.
Okay.
Spin off of One Night Only. So I, just like for One Night Only, One Goal Only, instead of talking to guys who played one game, I talked to 39 guys who scored one goal. Crazy stories. Jeez. One guy got stabbed in the femoral artery a couple of weeks after he scored his only goal and never really recovered from that. Like, just crazy. And there's a Hall of Famer in the One Goal Only book too, but you'll have to guess who that is.
Good trivia.
One
Nate,
to
Nate's
remember.
on it. I know. Do you know it,
Come
Nate?
on, Nate.
I feel like you
I'm
know.
going to say it's Billy Smith.
You're correct.
Oh,
It's Billy Smith.
Nate's
Nicely
good at this
done.
stuff.
Nicely done.
I was, and I guess aside from that, I mean, you see, it seems like, I mean, in our industry right now, it seems like you have to have your hands in different pots.
Yeah.
Do you feel do you feel like this is a shot in the arm that you have the writing to go along with the broadcasting?
Yeah, I think so. It gives you a little bit of street cred, I guess. People think you know more than reading a teleprompter, hopefully. I do like to tell stories. It's something I really enjoy. It kind of just came up, like I'd always dreamed of writing a book, and when I got to do hockey card stories, luckily I was with Sportsnet that gave me a platform that somebody might want to hear my voice. I had a lot of time off during the, I don't mean a lot of time off, but I don't work during the days.
Right.
But I enjoy it. They always say the best 2 days of a book is when you get your deal and when the book is printed, because the rest isn't too fun. But I wouldn't say that. I actually enjoy the process. I am probably going to take a bit of a break, but I'll probably get itchy pretty soon.
Is there a book out there that you like that you haven't either started on or that's in the works that you want to do? Is there a biography or just a concept you want to do that you haven't yet?
I really like this concept with Eddie. It's not War and Peace, right? We're not writing Ulysses here.
Right.
See, I don't even know what the authors' names are, but
Nate?
I'm no genius, right? But I think like Eddie, I'm smart enough to know what I do know.
Right.
I like fun stories. I like having a laugh. I like sitting down and talking with a guy. And this book's very close to just sitting down and talking with a guy. There's no great tragic swing in this book, right? Eddie's just had a pretty good time the whole way through.
Except for the tragic swing where the guy got hit in the head with the golf ball.
With a golf ball, yeah, that's true. But I would like to do more books of this style. I like that it was quick. I like that it wasn't a project that I suffered pain through for 4 or 5 years. Although there are some of those, but if anybody's listening and they'd like me to write their autobiography, by all means. But no great desire to write anything specific. I had an idea pop into my head the other day, and I might do that. I called a literary agent about it, which makes me sound like a
Want to
big
break
deal.
any news here on this, Ken?
I might break it when the mics go off, but it's one of those ones where it's like, geez, do I really want to do it? Because it's effort, and I don't mean to sound lazy.
Right, I know what you mean.
But man, when every comma matters and every hyphen matters, it's a lot. But that's luckily what I have editors for. But I do enjoy it, and I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's the most painstaking process." Well, I don't like pain. I wouldn't do something if it hurt me. So I enjoy it.
Nate, I think we should take our last question from journalism school here, and that is, they always said, Nate, and I know you know this,
Yes.
is there anything your guest would like to add that we have not talked about?
Marie Tessier, one of my old journalism professors, that's what she stressed was the greatest question, and it is. Anything else you'd like to add? I love what you guys are doing here with this podcast. I think it's great. You don't ask the typical questions, which is great. You kind of delve into the writing part, which I really enjoy. I guess what I'd like to add is, when are you guys going to write a book together?
You know, the Ken Reid autobiography has not been made.
That hasn't been made because it's not in the slight bit possibly profitable.
Well, you never know.
Cares. Do you have anything you guys spitball about, though? Seriously? Like,
not together, but
No.
I know Nate
Individually?
has a couple. I'm in the long form world, still trying to get some of those stories sold. I just finished a story on the 1989 Grey Cup.
Okay,
Which,
that's the one, the Rough Riders one?
Yes, and Dave, I did a profile on Dave Ridgway, but as you know, it's hard to get published. So still working on that. So my answer to that is still working on the long form, and then once the long form catches hold, if it ever does, then maybe I can work on a book with my buddy Nate Sager. Nate,
you got anything? What's going on, buddy?
People have been trying to get me to write a book forever.
Yeah. Why won't you do it?
Lack of confidence. What did someone want me to do? Someone wanted me to write a book about the 2009 Queens Golden Gales football team.
Yeah.
Because I was
do it.
Emotionally involved in that.
Yeah.
Do it.
My good friend John Power III has never let me live down yelling that's a terrible call.
Right.
In the press box in Quebec City during the Vanier Cup, but I protested that it was a terrible call.
Yeah.
So
lack of confidence. I mean, before I wrote hockey card stories, I had never written anything. Like, I was just a TV guy. Like, I never had, to my knowledge, a story in a newspaper published or anything. Maybe I'm overconfident. I don't know, but ignorance is bliss, baby.
Thank you for asking us some questions about us. This is the
welcome.
first time anyone's ever done that.
You're welcome.
And you know what? There may be a book in your future, Nate, and who knows?
You can be on this side of the desk.
That's true.
Nate.
I will interview you, and Ken will join me on this side. No,
but I do always joke the one book that I should write is the book about promoting the book with Eddie Shack, because man, we got some stories. It's been a freaking blast.
Is that over now, or is there more that you're doing?
This is it, I think.
Okay.
I just got asked to do an interview with a station in Vancouver tomorrow, but
okay.
Save you guys, and because you guys, I like where you guys go with this. I like listening to it, and I don't know if you guys listen to. There's another good one about writing, Two Writers Slinging Yang. Jeff Pearlman does it.
Oh no, Nate, you might have.
Yeah, I've caught a few.
Yeah, it's pretty good as well.
We'll have to check that out.
So yeah, it's good.
Ken, I'm gonna let you get on to whatever it is you need to get on to. But
I'm gonna go home and take the turkey soup off simmer. I'm making turkey soup because we had turkey last night at the old household. So I'm making my famous turkey soup tonight. That no one else in my house will eat because they say there's too many bones in it. But that's the secret.
Before you go, though, after we cut the mics, we need to take a picture with you, Ken. So thanks again.
Sure, boys.
The highest rated podcast ever is Ken Reid, and he is now our guest, our hat trick guest.
Sweet.
The third time he's been on. So we'll love to have you on next year.
Thanks, guys.
For the next book. Thanks.